Quick Skinner, I'm here with my colleague André. My name is Alexandre, and we have a new guest this week, Chuck. Chuck, if you could introduce yourself.
Um, so my name is Chuck Copenace. I'm from Kenora, Ontario. Live in Winnipeg. I'm Ojibway guy, Anishinaabe, and um, yeah. Oh, I'm a trumpet player. That's what I was trying to say. I was like, I'm a musician, and also I was doing social work for a long time, up until this year. So there's lots of social services and kind of working to help people. So yeah, that's me.
And you just a few weeks ago launched an album.
Oh yeah,
Can you speak about it?
yeah. So this is my second recording with my current group, which is my own. I decided to form a group and lead it. So I write all the music, or I choose all the music. I make all the decisions, and just decided that I want to spend the rest of my life playing music, but I wanted to just kind of be on my own. I want to be on my own terms and just play music, share my own ideas, and share my own style. Which isn't my necessarily my own style. It's just I really like playing in a group that I'm not too worried about vocals, but I want my band to have fun. I want whoever's listening to music to have fun and to be able to connect to it in some way. So it's a jazz group, and it's a 5-piece jazz quintet, which is pretty standard for a trumpet player to have. But the music that I do is all my kind of stuff. So there's not a lot of traditional jazz music in what I play. I really come from an electronic background, so um, and I come from a groove background. Like that's where I really started. That's how I connected to jazz when I started playing music, and I guess um, I really wanted to have a group that people could connect to, and maybe even if you weren't a jazz fan, that you could connect to the sounds, connect to the feelings or the grooves that I'm trying to put together, and yeah. So this is the second album, and what started my whole for this recording in particular, and this whole group. I had a period of time where I wasn't doing music, I wasn't playing, and I didn't really know why, but I was just doing I was doing my social services work, and I thought, oh well, it was in my 30s and early 40s. I was actually thinking maybe music wasn't my thing, maybe this is my thing, and I really enjoy working with my community or people from different communities, the homeless community. Like the different jobs that I had were all really kind of intense helping jobs, and but I didn't really know that I had a block happening. Like something was going on inside of me that was stopping me from playing music and stopping me from moving forward with what I knew I wanted to do, which is just have my own band. And there was a lot of fear there, I guess. So I ended up going to a sweat lodge for my job, and that's what shortly after starting those lodges, um, I just picked up the phone. I remember I was just sitting there one day in my apartment, and just I guess I was probably yearning for music. I was yearning to play, but I didn't have anyone to play with. Like I was working on music. Like I was always like kind of writing stuff in my apartment, but I wasn't playing anywhere. And I remember just sitting there thinking, geez, I'm missing, I felt like I was like, I'm missing what I'm supposed to be doing. And then I ended up just picking up the phone. I remember that day. It was a winter day like this, where it was like fall or winter, and I was just, so I picked up the phone and I called up this bar downtown, and I booked a gig, and I was like, oh, I told the guy that I was with this band before, and and he's like, and I kind of lied a little bit, and I said that I have a band. And I didn't have a band at all. I just had like, yeah, I had music, but I didn't have anything written down. Like I was nowhere near even started having a band at the time. But I told him I had a band. I told him my history, and he liked my old other work that I'd done. And he said, yeah, I'll book you a gig. And it wasn't like, it was just a gig, like I don't think there was any money involved with it. But I remember when I hung up the phone, I was just like, oh, well, here we go. I guess I'm started. And then I started phoning my musician pals, like guys that I respect in the community, people that I knew. I heard them play, people that I knew had the right, or I suspected had the right mindset for what I wanted to do. And they told me that it was people that told me if I ever had a group that they would play with me over the years before that. And so I called them. I was just like, I have a show, and everyone agreed. And by the end of the day, I was just kind of set on that path. But it was so simple when I look back. And but I really can't explain why that happened that day, when I've had a lot of days like that over the years, where I was probably like, oh, I should be playing, and then just move on and forget about it, And so, yeah, this album I recorded an EP in 2015, but really I think I recorded the EP just kind of because I had to continue booking shows, and I was still working full time, and there's still, there was still stuff kind of blocking me. But I think what stopped me from just starting the band and starting the process of learning how to lead a band and all that stuff, I think that whatever changed probably was what happened in the sweat lodge. Like, I think when I started going to those lodges, like I was going multiple times a week to different lodges around the city. I just couldn't get enough. I kept hearing the songs and doing all the praying. Like they were really painful. And there was just lots going on. But the reason why I know that it was pain that I needed to go through was that I just kept going. You know what I mean? Like if it was something that just wasn't for me, I wouldn't go back again. I wouldn't go back the next week and say, okay, let's do it again. I want to burn. I want to burn somewhere, and I want to cry, all this kind of stuff. I just knew that something was happening there, but it wasn't like the same as going to counseling or going to trauma therapy. It wasn't the same as that, because you don't get to have that constant communication as you're reaching different points in your learning and your feeling and all that kind of stuff. Like you don't have a guide sitting there, because I've been through a lot of therapy, getting sober and stuff. And it was just to me, it was just a real, like, just kind of trust, like a blind, well, not blind. Well, yeah, it's kind of blind. It's dark in the lodge. Like there's something going on there that I had to trust in, and just that it was carrying me. And so nowadays, so this album is kind of, I named it New Spirit. So that was, and I asked my mom when she was still alive at the time, like how you say that in Ojibway. And I had a couple songs on there that kind of came out of the lodge as well. Like I wrote the tunes, the melodies of the songs that I was hearing in the lodge and hearing in ceremonies as I continued to learn and go to more. These melodies just kind of, as I started writing music, they were kind of there as I was writing music in my mind, and in just wherever any of my music comes from, those melodies were there. And I started like humming them and singing them as best as I could, like as I was making chords, and I was just like, oh, that fits here, oh, this fits there, wow, that sounds really good, like it sounds cool. And at the time I wasn't even thinking I'm going to make a song like this, I'm going to release an album and have this thing. Like at that point, there's just like, I was actually thinking, well, yeah, maybe I was just thinking this is just for me, just to hear these songs, to hear the music that I play being together with these melodies. I remember at first I was thinking, well, this is going to be just for me because I'm not a singer. I just started going to ceremonies. I didn't feel like I was qualified to do what I was doing, but I certainly was qualified to do what I was doing in my bedroom while I'm playing, and I thought that initially that's where those songs were going to go. Like I had a couple beautiful melodies that I just felt were they just so balanced and so expressive. And I've heard them in different types of ceremonies and being along with people and hearing the songs. And a lot of times when you're in that lodge, and once the songs start, that's where the letting go starts. The song starts and it starts bringing out that emotion from people, and starts and to me that's just like a real refined example, or a real concrete example of exactly what music is. It's just like, okay, everybody does it. You know what I mean? They're just like, okay, I need to relax now. I got to put on some music, and just start relaxing.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yes, you had I would like to know exactly when, at what date, this kind of epiphanic moment in the lodge arrived, where the spirit of music called you again, because it was not brand new for you. You have been trained as a musician younger.
Yeah.
So can you give us some scale on the time, how it arrived finally at that moment in the lodge?
Well, so in 2014 is when I went to my first lodge. So that was the fall of 2014. And then I booked my first gig. I think it was December of 2014 for the spring of 2015. So that winter, and I was still single at the time, and I didn't have kids. So what I was doing was basically just working all the time and then working on music at night. And I had so I guess during that winter is where I went to all these lodges, and where I started just meeting a lot of people in the ceremonial community in Winnipeg. you know, and there's one area north of Winnipeg that has like at least six lodges by different elders that are all like people go to. And for some reason, this little place called Lebo, Manitoba, it's close to Seguin, which is a super strong ceremonial community. The Turtle Lodge is there, which I think is nationally known to David Kershane. You know, is based out of Seguin, and a lot of the knowledge that everyone carries is coming out of certain places in Manitoba, and that's kind of where I started learning. So it was over that spring, and I remember those are the I just remember a lot of the lodges were really powerful, like just after what was going on in the lodges, what was going on with me, what I was witnessing, you know, people getting names, you know, people going to healing lodges for sick people. And then I would be working on music at home. And then that winter I was getting my music ready for my gig, which is going to be in March, which was the first gig that I booked. So I guess a lot was happening, I guess, with music and with ceremony. And I was just, a lot of the people that I know that I consider like my brothers or my family now, where they would kind of bug me and they'd be like, oh, there's Chuck again. Every time there's a sweat lodge, you know, I would come there calling me a sweat hog for a while. I was like, oh, it's a sweat hog. And I would just be, just that's where all of this stuff was happening, for sure. And I remember when I continued writing that first song, which is called Creator, which is the kind of the first single off my album right now. It's Creator. That melody, when I started writing it and I started making the chords and I made the groove, and I was just like, holy man, like, look, this is working. I thought that I was like, the song is working, and it's giving me that feeling that I get when I've stumbled onto something that I really like, you know, when I'm like, just oh, I got stuff that's okay. This is okay. This is all right. I guess when I get to something that I'm like, oh, this is really good, I'll get that feeling as I'm writing it. Like I'll start getting this feeling of just like, whoa, or whatever. And it's probably similar for me. And I don't know if it's the same with every musician, but for me, I think that's like the drug of playing music or writing music or performing music or whatever. There's certain times I'm not in a state of ecstasy the whole time. You know, I'm doing stuff, but I'm searching for that moment where I'm witnessing, you know, just, you know, someone's performance that's just amazing, or I'm witnessing, you know, I don't know if it's what true creativity, or I don't know if it's, you know, I think it's, but that started happening, and it started really kind of firing up my, you know, just kind of reaffirming when those things happen. I now that I'm sober and I go to ceremony, and even before I went to ceremony, like to get sober, I had to center my life around this higher power. And before I went to ceremony, it was just kind of like this kind of real undefined power that I was like, well, I'm not in a position to define that, but I can connect to it for sure. The same way as I connect to electricity, I don't have to understand how a dam works and generates power. I just flick the switch, and that's what I was being learned, or that's what I learned and was being taught by people. So anyways, yeah, just I was thinking, well, when I get those feelings and when I'm creating something and I feel like I'm creating something great, or I'm witnessing something magical with other musicians, or I'm performing and I'm feeling energy from the crowd, and I'm just like, holy man, like this is like, we're just, sometimes I feel like we're just one big group, or we're one big being. Sometimes when you're in the crowd and you're with the band and you're interacting, it feels like you're all like the same person or something. I don't know what it is, but I started thinking like those are the signs that you're on the right path, basically.
Is there a continuity? Because I have heard many times indigenous artists telling music is medicine for us, and well, arts is medicine. And I was wondering if you see a continuity with your work as a social worker, with your involvement in the community, and your role as a composer, as a musician. Because this question comes also because I have heard those composition on those pieces on your album inspired by the gospel songs. And gospel songs, of course, is something that is addressed to a community, and we know that it has been part in North America of the healing path for marginalized nations and group. And I was wondering if if there is something that is not only individual in the fact, in that inspiration you have for the music.
Like that it's all one thing, do you mean? Or that it sorry, I guess I'm not sure about the question.
Well, I was the question is, do you if I want to narrow it, and I would say, is your music also is medicine for the collectivity too, for the people that are connected to your creations?
Mm-hmm. There's one word that I'm not catching, the mitten.
I was quoting other composers and musicians, and also we know with all the trauma we had in our communities, for many artists, the creative path, the way they understand their practice as artists is also a part of healing, to overcome all the trauma that are not only individual trauma. We know that the residential schools is historical shock for the whole communities and nations, not only for the individuals or for one family. It's really something historical, and we are all, in a way or another, still dealing with that heritage. And many artists see their personal healing through art also as a collective experience to share through the when they perform, when people are listening to their words, looking at their drawings or paintings or participating in dances. It's all part of a collective therapy, if I can say.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. I think. Yeah. So right now, or what, over that time of 2014, 2015, it was me healing. Definitely, whatever is going on, it for sure was just felt like it was like, because I didn't know what my band was going to be. I didn't know where it was, like, what, am I just going to play bar gigs? Or am I just going to, am I going to do this? I'm going to do that. I wasn't sure. I also wasn't sure where, like, how things were going to be received, and I was like, had this attitude, fail or succeed, it doesn't matter. You know what I mean? Like, I'm still going to just continue to do what I want to do, and until it looks like it's not going to work anymore, or it's not going to, until I start getting feelings that it's not working or whatever, which, I haven't gotten yet. But so now, as things progress, I started playing shows. Like, I don't, what I felt when I play that song Creator is that there's not really, when I have like a concert to play where I have some time to talk, then I like to share a lot of that experience the same kind of way as I'm sharing now. And I do hope that my experience in connecting to ceremony, and I hope that I can talk, when I talk, that it shows a path that somebody else could take if they wanted, like, just go crazy and get fanatical about it for a while, or if you want, that there's nothing wrong with that. Because sometimes as I've grown up, sometimes what's happened with me is when someone is doing something and they're doing really well at it, there'll be someone beside or someone close that'll say, "Oh, settle down. Oh, settle down. You're trying to be all good or something," and start making statements like that. And maybe, that's something that I worry that might still be happening with somebody. Or I'll see on Facebook that someone's like, "Oh, the idea of connecting with ceremony also has this idea that once you start going to ceremony, you got to be perfect or something, or you got to be, that you're not a messed up individual anymore all of a sudden." You know what I mean? Like, that it's not a process, or that it's not a healing journey that you're embarking on, or it's not, you can still be cool. You can still be like whatever you want to be, or just a person that also does this, and I'm seeing that a lot. I'm seeing that a lot now. But when I was young, definitely there was for myself, I'd be like, well, if I start going to ceremony, I have to start wearing jewelry that I don't want to wear or something. Or like, there's just this image that we've been fed of what an Indian is, or what an indigenous person is. And when I was young, it was Indian. Like, everybody said Indian. there was, I remember when First Nations started, I was like, oh, First Nations, that's cool, you know, but we're all Indians in Kenora. And or Anishinaabe people, you know, was the other word that my mom would say. That's what we are. We're Anishinaabe. And but
I,
oh,
I
go ahead.
wonder sometimes how come that you can say Ojibway, but you call yourself Anishinaabe.
Well, Ojibway, I guess I'll use that. I'll use that when I'm, because it's such a term that everybody knows. You know what I mean? And in Anishinaabe or Anishinaabeg is what I'll I would use that more in a, yeah, around my family, people that I know, other Anishinaabe people, you know, and yeah, I guess I'll interchange those depending on where I'm at, you know. And then I've heard also that Anishinaabe is also even a general term, like it's it's more encompassing of more than Ojibwe. So it's something that I'm still learning about, you know. But I know my aunties identify as Anishinaabe people, and I'm always in Winnipeg. I'm always in Winnipeg where it's more Ojibwe, I guess, is the more common use around here. Yeah. Oh, we lost
And,
Alexandre. There he is.
and
I'm still
how
here.
come in Kelowna an Anishinaabe kid happens to play trumpet and to connect to jazz? I know you have told this story a few times, but the people that are listening to us today, probably they are discovering you, and so it would be interesting if you tell us again this childhood story.
Yeah, yeah. I it's since releasing the album, I've talked this story quite a bit. And when I released my other EP, I was asked that question quite a bit as well. And it seems like I kind of had a break while I was making this recording and stuff. But yeah, the story is based, like, when I was 13 and in Kenora. So it's Kenora, Ontario. You know, which is definitely a historic, has been segregated at one time. Like my mom said, there were restaurants she wasn't allowed to go to as an Indigenous person, you know, when she was growing up. And Kenora has had like a kind of a long period of time of healing as well. Like just the town has had this process of going from extreme to maybe not so extreme to where the communities are more intermingled or more together. There's still issues there, but so I grew up in Kenora, and in grade 7 we all had to take music, so everyone had to take music or art, or music and art in grade 7. In grade 8 you could choose music or art. And so I was super lucky. Then in grade 7 I had a music teacher named Carolyn Easton who was there, and she's still one of my main supporters right now. But she played trumpet, and she also played bass in the community stage band in Kenora, which but I showed up in music class, and I remember I was a clown at that time in grade 7. like one of my main ways to have fun at school was to be funny, make the class laugh, and I also enjoyed like that school. The school work was never that hard. I never really felt like anything was difficult, and I remember Mrs. Easton kind of tolerated me. I remember she was really stern too. But anyways, in grade, so we all had to choose an instrument. I don't know, it must have been somewhere in that first month when you first start school. And I chose the flute. And all I was thinking was small instrument, small case, like the case is this big. And I would, my sisters played the flute before me, and they were good at it. They seemed to have a musical, kind of knack for playing instruments. And for some reason, I thought they would show me how to play the flute, and then I would do well at music and get through. I wasn't thinking, oh, I want to become a musician. I was just like, get through the class to the next grade, get through, and eventually you'll be done going to school and you'll go to do other things. Like school was just like, to me, I remember just thinking it's bothersome. Like it's really like this bothersome thing that you have to do, which is probably the attitude of lots of kids. And so anyways, I chose the flute. I remember taking it home to my mom's and asking my sisters how to play it. And they had no idea. They were just like, well, you just play it. They didn't know how to teach somebody. And I remember being disappointed because the flute, I couldn't get the sound. And I was just trying so hard. I was like, oh, I can't get the sound out of this thing. Like, and you have to memorize all these buttons. Like the job just started looking bigger and bigger. And I remember just thinking, okay, well, we had a grace period. You can choose another instrument. So I went back after my experience with the flute. I went back to choose another instrument, and the trumpet was the smallest case still available. So all the clarinets were taken. The other instruments were like the tuba and euphonium, really big things. And I had zero interest because I knew I had to carry these instruments home to practice them. So I wanted something that wasn't big. And I do remember distinctly looking at the 3 buttons. And I was like, 3 buttons is very, that looks doable to me. And I took it home, and I remember those first few weeks or first week, I just started looking. I didn't know how to read music yet, but the music book would have the buttons. Like it would just be 3 buttons. So 1 black meant first finger, 2 black meant 2 fingers. And that was basically it. So all these simple melodies, like Mary Had a Little Lamb, Twinkle, Twinkle, Little Star, were all these first melodies that you have to learn how to play. And to me, just like I could make the trumpet sound. I could make a note. You just have to push a button to get that other note. So I was able to play these melodies really easily. I remember, yeah. But I guess that was just being able to make a sound on the trumpet was not a natural thing for most people. I thought it was a natural thing for people to be able to make a sound or to play it, and it kind of isn't. Like some people just can't do it. Like can't figure out how to do it and how to make all the notes with only 3 buttons. That's to me, it just seemed really easy. But I was really, I ended up being ahead of everybody right away. And I remember I finished all those tests really early, like before the end of the year, and my mark was 100% for grade 7 music. I remember just finishing all my tests and all. Became kind of, and then I became this, everyone was just like, I played a solo that year. I remember I played this song called Aria. I got this big standing ovation. It was like a community concert. I remember I was wearing this horrible rainbow sweater, which was the ugliest thing ever. It was white with it was like Hudson's Bay colors or whatever. I remember wearing that, and everyone was standing up, and I actually thought I didn't play very well. I remember thinking, oh, I messed up this, I messed that up, or whatever. And then everyone stood up, and it was a lot of people talked about the tone for a long time of my trumpet playing. Like they just like the tone that I have, and that, I think that's even up until now. A lot of people kind of say, I really like the way that you play. Like I like and over time from grade 7, I just started, I guess I started liking the tone. But I started liking the attention. And I think it was kind of the first time where I was getting positive attention. Along with the attention that I would get by making everyone laugh or being bad or being, challenging, or I would get attention in those areas. But that was the first time where I'd get attention from being good at something, But it was that first time where I first heard people saying, this, for an Indian, you're such a good trumpet player. I've heard that a few times from older people. And at the time, my state of mind was like, I was like, I kind of bought into that thinking, that I'm good for an Indian, or I'm, this idea that it's crazy. It's crazy to think that I wasn't offended when somebody comes up and says, well, for an Indian, you're really good. And but to me, I just attribute that to survival in Kenora. Like if you're living in and that was my internal thinking of how I need to be if I want to have friends or I want to do whatever. Like I have to be good. I have to be better than an Indian, which is so dumb. But I think a lot of people have that, that thinking too, or had that thinking, or can relate with that. So yeah, that's a trumpet. And then I just ended up doing a lot of playing in the big band in Kenora. I started learning all these jazz songs and playing solos, and I started private lessons right away in grade 7, probably towards the end of the year. And my first private lesson teacher in Kenora also was the husband of the music teacher in grade 7. So they were a team. And he basically kind of put me on a track. Like everyone was like, you're good at trumpet. We got to like jump on this and make you, see where this is going to go. And I was like, yep, like, let's do it. Because I'm really liking the trumpet. I'm liking what's going on. And so I agreed to do all these lessons. But he just kind of put me on a track to university. He was like, this is what you need to know before you graduate from high school. This is what you need to do to be ready for a music career. And so that's what started happening in grade 8. And I didn't know, joining the community jazz band and playing all those old swing songs, I didn't know that was going to be such a vital part of my musical journey. So there were just the right people there, because maybe if it was a different music teacher, I might not have, maybe if there wasn't a private lesson teacher, I wouldn't have had that after school aspect of learning more music at the time. Or right now, that where I went to grade 7 doesn't even have a music program. Like this, the program's gone. So if I came through at right now, I wouldn't even have the opportunity to have an instrument put in my hands in grade 7. So that might have been gone. So yeah. Anyways, that's the story of how music, this unlikely story.
All your journey, because there is few, there are not upfront, well-known, famous, but there is a few jazz musicians that are indigenous. Jim Pepper is probably the most well-known. Did you connect with that indigenous jazz during your journey?
No, not until recently. Not until recently, really. I always felt alone. Like where music took me was sometimes I felt like it was the opposite of indigenous. Like I would always be the only indigenous person in my band, or in, like as I grew up, there was just not a lot of, there wasn't people that were even trying to acknowledge that I was indigenous or that even mattered, and I think that's, yeah. And so music always had this separate, it was always separate from being indigenous. And that was also the only time that I really thought about being indigenous really was, during funerals or during times where I went to a ceremony or powwows or whatever. Otherwise I was just going around. And so, yeah, I didn't hear a lot about indigenous. I heard about Jim Pepper. But then more recently, I joined this indigenous jazz band. It's an indigenous big band run by a girl named Julia Keefe, and she's indigenous from Washington. And so this band is based in the States. And when I started when she invited me to play with her band, she started talking about Mildred Bailey, who is an indigenous woman who's a pioneer in jazz. And then I went to Studio Bell in, or no, where was that? Yeah, in Calgary. And they have a whole indigenous musician wing of the Studio Bell. It's kind of a museum. And then someone was telling me Charlie Parker has indigenous blood in him as well, which I thought, because I really connected with him, the way that he plays as well, like in Charlie Parker, Cannonball Adderley, I think, or maybe it was just Charlie Parker. I'm not sure, but that's all like kind of more recent, where. So in this indigenous big band, we play this tune called I think it's called Water, and it's a Jim Pepper song. And so I'm kind of learning now. I didn't really know much music by Jim Pepper, but that's one of my favorite ones to play in that big band. It's a really unique big band piece, and he's. So that band is where I'm learning a lot right now. When I played the first gig that we had with those guys, like I wasn't sure what to expect, and indigenous big band, like where are the musicians coming from? Like where are all these guys? I only really knew of Delbert Anderson, who's a trumpet player I think he's based out of I think he's Dene, Arizona. No, I can't remember where he's from. But he's this amazing indigenous trumpet player. Someone connected with us through the internet a few years ago, and then he started that big band with Julia. Then I think that's how I ended up being invited to the band. And when I played a gig with them, that was the first time that I was sitting in a room when our first rehearsal with so many indigenous musicians. Yeah. Yeah, I remember thinking, just kind of looking around, right? Like I'm looking beside me, and there's Delbert. He's playing third trumpet. I'm playing fourth trumpet. Just give me 1 second here. Yeah, I just remember thinking like, I didn't think this would happen. Like, and look across the band. There's a sax player named Michael from I'm terrible, Atlanta area, I think. I'm terrible with names and where people are from. But I think he's a Navajo guy. And then I was like, look at us. We're all like together and we're gonna learn all this music and we're gonna play a concert together. And we did workshops on this reserve, which was amazing. Like, um, but I was looking at Delbert and I was like, he looks like he could be my cousin. Like we look like we're from the same place. And I was just like, it was really surreal that week when we played. It was in Olympia, Washington, where we played that first gig. And yeah, I think it was that idea that I was always alone was, I was just like, yeah, it was really clear at that point of how alone I felt, just kind of as a musician. So, and I think that's what happened in the lodges too, where I have this other community now. You know what I mean? Like I have this other family. When I go to lodges, I have all these guys that I've grown. I feel like I'm growing up with them, and we're all learning, and I've been going to Sundance for a few years. I've got to finish my 4th year, but I've done this, like started sun dancing. This year I went to Medeoin Lodge, which I found out it was my great grandfather carried those teachings through him and other people were the guys that were carrying, because they were talking about, like, I thought I was named after my dad, Charles, but it turns out we were both named after Charles Mandamin, who is in Shoal Lake, and so this is going back through, in my mind, I call it an apocalypse, but it's going back through the colonization of Canada, and these teachings are coming. There's that connection of these teachings through that, and so I'm starting that. I went and started the Medeoin Lodge. My initiation year was this summer, and I'll be doing my 4th year of Sundance next year. So I'm not alone anymore. You know what I mean? In that sense, and that's where music. I'm not alone in music anymore. All of a sudden I'm in this big band, and I think we're gonna play in New York next year, like at the Lincoln. No, what's it called? The Kennedy Center, and we're gonna be part of a festival. So I'm gonna go play in New York next year at this, and I'm going to be with this Indigenous big band, and we're all going to go and play some more music. And I think they want to try to get some of my music for the big band as well, which would be amazing. Like, yeah, I remember distinctly thinking, like, I didn't think I was going to, like, an Indigenous big band would even be possible for another, like, maybe 50 years. Just an arbitrary term. I was thinking was like, it's not gonna. I didn't think it wasn't gonna be in my lifetime that there would be enough. But I'm so isolated in Winnipeg. Like, we're so far away from everybody. I don't know all this stuff that's happening in the States. So yeah, it's and right now there's a real contemporary Indigenous music surge that's happening that I'm super, like, I'm looking at how well Jeremy Dutcher is doing, and William Prince, and I'm this old guy. like there's these young guys, there's another guy named I forget his state. I forget his name. Zun, I think is his stage name. His name's Daniel Monkman, but he's from this area as well. And these guys are doing well and traveling all over the world. And I'm just like, yeah, I look at all that, and I think there's this surge of country artists as well. And it's there's been guys that are like kind of passing on that knowledge, forward to all these young people. So now I'm kind of feeling I'm at the beginning again, and I'm another one of the an emerging artist or whatever. But I've been playing for so long. But I guess as a solo artist, and a lot of these guys are all doing ceremony too, all doing the sweats, and I think that's so cool. Like, I think it's what we need is just not to have this isolation happening anymore. I'd like that not to happen for other people. Feel like you don't want to feel alone.
Well, yeah, that's what arts is about too. It is a connection between people that have been too long isolated. It is part of our collective journey, I think. I don't know if you don't see it, you should go to Google and on a platform to see Rumble, the Indians that shook the world. The film that has been made here by the Reservation Pictures in Resolution Picture in Montreal. And this is the historical influence of the indigenous peoples of America on popular music, including jazz. That was part of the story that has been hidden. So we have to rediscover our own artistic history too, because it has been erased in the memory. And also, it would be a pleasure if you come to Montreal to present you Corey Thomas, who is a very talentless Mi'kmaq jazz player, and he has his own backwater township quintet in Montreal, and playing jazz. And he studied at music at Concordia University here. So we know that there is this connection between jazz and the indigenous cultures was there before you and me. And I think we in our own journey we just rediscover what has been forgotten, and this is how we feel better, stronger, and we don't feel alone no more.
Yeah, totally. That's what I was wondering what Backwater Township was, because someone started following me on Instagram and started liking my posts, and I was like, but I didn't look because I wasn't sure what that was. So that's who you're talking about. So yeah, I want to definitely look into that.
And if you have a collaboration with them, we can put you on the stage of Montreal First Peoples Festival. Maybe they are another.
That would be great.
Yeah.
I was just in Montreal playing at the Loft Jazz Festival a couple weeks. I guess it's about a month couple of weeks ago, and that was awesome.
Mm.
That was awesome.
Yeah, I didn't. I saw the program, but I didn't notice there was indigenous musicians. I think we would all the office here would have been in the room if we had known.
Yeah.
But when you will come back, let us know. We will be there.
Okay.
So thank you very much, Ketchimigwech. This was a wonderful moment of sharing, and this is really important. You are really a role model for many people that want to accomplish what are their inner trend is, and sometimes they feel this blockade you spoke about, and we have to overcome it and to succeed as damn Indians.
Well, one huge thing here, and I don't know if you've heard, is my Wob Canoe, becoming the premier here.
Oh, you're lucky to have your premiere.
Yes, I knew Wab. He was very, very young. He was with his father, Peter.
Yeah.
And I was at the board of APTN in those years. I think it was 207, something like that.
Yeah.
And he was the shy young guy following his father, who was a real traditional elder.
Yeah.
So a wonderful person. And it's interesting how I took that heritage and made it something else, and how he is present now. Well, first minister of Manitoba. And we had several times also the board was, the meeting were in Winnipeg, and once with David McLeod. I saw you. I know you. You know, David. We went together to a sweat lodge north of Winnipeg.
Oh,
So you see, you are not alone. We are all connected.
David McLeod was one of the people that, when I wasn't playing music, I remember he would be one of the people that would be like, Chuck, where's your trumpet? What are you doing? What kind of band are you doing? What music are you doing? I'd be like, oh, I'm not doing anything. And I remember he'd always just get this look, that's not good. And there's a few guys like that always reminded me. They'd always show up somewhere and be like, Chuck, where's your trumpet? And I'd be like, well, I'm not playing right now. And I always think that those guys are so important. Like, they're so important to myself, and lots of people. Like David McLeod is I think very important to Indigenous music in Canada, or whatever. Like he always, just one of the most supportive people, especially for musicians. And my Indigenous name is from Wob's dad, from Peter Kelly. My mom and him are cousins, and they grew up together. So, and then having him, it's just so crazy how that whole Wob becoming premier, the whole story behind it, is really pretty amazing. And his father was a scholar. He my mom would say, when he's speaking and he's sharing, and she's fluent in Ojibway, and she's a very intelligent person, she says there's words that he uses that she doesn't understand, because he's using like language that's advanced or older, and
the Bush language.
Like, so it's pretty amazing that we have this guy that's a premier the Manitoba that is also a sun dancer. That's also can carry knowledge. Like he can. Yeah, I don't know. I'm really excited to see how things are going to work out. Especially here and hopefully across Canada and everywhere. Maybe that spirit will start entering into the government systems, where it's needed, and it's not just like only for Indigenous people, it's for everybody, like just kind of a different way of looking at things. That's what I hope anyways, because yeah.
I think that's a conclusion.
Yeah.
Alexandre, do you have something to add?
Yeah, I'm gonna see you next week.
Yes. Well, next
guys,
week with another guest. And maybe, yes, that's a good idea. We should have Wab Canoe or David McLeod as a guest on our weekly podcast. That would be good too. Right?
Yeah, sure.
Yeah, David McLeod. I would highly recommend David McLeod.
Yeah.
Yeah, he's such a good speaker too. Yeah.
Okay, so we say to our listeners, you see how it is interesting. Stay tuned next week at the same time on Rue Adadegen. Rue Adadegen is a street in Montreal that have got an indigenous Mohawk name recently because it was a colonizer, general racist name before, and it has been changed. It is now Rue Adadegen, which means in Mohawk brotherhood and sisterhood, because it's the same name in Mohawk. So it speaks about connection and family rather than colonialism and conquest.
Yeah.
So welcome to Rue Adadegen each week, each Wednesday at noon.
Awesome. Well, thank you so much for having me.
Miigwech. I'll see you. Maybe I'll see you next festival.
See what the summer brings.
Yeah. Bye bye. Matashuk.
Matashuk.
Bye bye.